Hello, welcome to another episode of SENSimilla. I'm your host, Will Reed. Today I am joined by a dear friend, Laura Beohner, who is the founder and CEO slash fill in the blank. She does so many things. She's the founder and CEO of the Healing Rose, a CBD brand and full product line, very full product line, based in Massachusetts. Laura, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and for the opportunity to join you.
Yeah. So this is all pretty new for me, but the point of these conversations is to hopefully demystify a lot of things about the cannabis industry and talk about kind of the biographical path that we as entrepreneurs take to get to where we are. I'm hoping that we can lend some knowledge to anybody listening to this who are trying to start a cannabis company or who are interested in I get this all the time. Like, how do I get into the cannabis industry? And it's just like, I have no idea where to even begin to answer that question. But I hope that we can at least, again, demystify it a little bit. So I appreciate you being here. You and I go back several years. You were one of probably the first. You were one of the first people I think I met outside of Vermont in sort of working in the space. It was pretty new for you. I think maybe in your first or second year. We met at one of the New England cannabis conventions. I think the first one in Maine.
Yeah, or maybe we met at Vermont Hemp Fest by Hetty, Vermont in September maybe of that year of 2017.
Yep.
That would be my.
That's exactly it.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. So a few years ago now, but I remember seeing you there, and not knowing you then as I do now, but just, and without trying to blow smoke, but just thinking how brilliant the whole setup you had at the trade show was, right? Like, as you are right now, behind you, completely branded, everything. But this is before everybody was doing that sort of thing. But everything you had was, all of your employees were all dressed in gear, and you had the massage table and the huge line of beautifully built CBD products. So yeah, you were one of those early people I saw, and I was like, oh yes, these are one of the people who get it.
Yes. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get into it. I'm kind of curious where the Healing Rose came from and how you got to it. You're a young entrepreneur.
Yes.
You started this several years ago when you were even younger, presumably, unless you're a time traveler, which is possible.
Yeah. I started the Healing Rose when I was 25, and it was less than a year out of college. So I kind of jumped right into it, which is the way I think to do it.
You didn't even hesitate. You didn't even think of anything else. I mean, I think that's great. I'm an older entrepreneur in that, I went through several phases of career, having careers before I actually decided, that I wanted to strike out on my own. But why weren't you scared? Weren't you terrified?
That's an interesting question. I kind of didn't have a lot of fear going into the business. I was right out of college. I've wanted to be an entrepreneur since I can remember. I think it was fourth grade. I was hustling roller skating lessons and tours of the woods behind my house to the neighborhood kids. And 9/11, when that happened, I actually set up a little American memorabilia stand, and we were selling stickers and pins. So I've just kind of always had that in me, and I went through pretty much my whole life saying I'm going to be my own boss. So that's kind of what I always envisioned for myself. And yeah, I never found it to be scary at the beginning. There's scary moments during entrepreneurship, especially when the risks get bigger. But in the beginning, it's actually kind of a lot of fun, and you're not afraid to make mistakes. Now it's there's a lot more weighing behind every decision. So I'd say in the beginning, it's a lot more fun than scary. I don't know.
and we were talking about the demystification. That's a perfect point. For me, I had the exact opposite experience. I had to go through, I wasn't terribly entrepreneurial growing up, or even post college. I would say I was fairly nomadic. But but I think I did have a lot of preconceived notions. I didn't go to business school. I didn't,
Mm,
I didn't have an MBA. I didn't. There's so many things that you don't know. You think of like even accounting, and you're like, ah, it's like.
mm,
So
yeah.
there was a lot of these preconceived notions that maybe I projected as fears on
Mhm.
all the reasons why I shouldn't do this. And for me, eventually it was like I'd gone through so many experiences of, you know, retail or sales and customer service, whatever. And you just, you know, I'm one of those terrible people who just looks at everybody and sees all the things that they're doing wrong and can say, I can do it better. Until
Yep.
finally I had an inner dialogue where it was like, put up or shut up. So I'm always envious of just like, people like you, they just like jumped in. It's so amazing. Like,
Yeah, I will say going to business school gave me a lot of confidence, obviously. I went to Northeastern for entrepreneurship and marketing, and I also did 2 years in my undergrad at Babson. So I kind of just was just in the business world and the college sense for so long, and taking entrepreneurship classes, I felt like I was ready. Like I had already been sketching out businesses for a year and a half before launching too. And I think definitely going to business school, I mean, there's a lot of degrees that are questionable if they are worth the cost, but I do
yeah,
feel that that gave me just a lot of confidence. I was a teaching and research assistant for an amazing professor there, that also gave me a lot of confidence. I was teaching classes and things like that. So yeah, I think that definitely just helped take away any of the fear and giving me a good foundation in all the different parts of entrepreneurship and running a business.
totally. Yeah, I guess you either learn it or you live it. And,
Yeah.
you either learn it and live it, or you just live it and learn it.
Yeah, and like and once I mean, business school is way different than real life, but
Sure.
obviously having a good foundation, and there's all that stuff online too. So if you aren't able to go to college, there's still ways to educate yourself on the foundations of business that can really give you
Yeah.
a lot better chance of success.
And no one teaches you the confidence side of it, and that's, I would say, the most
Mm,
important thing, because it once you can get through the simple I believe in myself, which sounds so corny, but it's, for me, it was such a big thing. Like I had to, I really did have to sort of convince myself of that in some ways, before I felt ready to jump in, because you got bills to pay, and you don't know how you're going to be able to make that work in those
mm.
early stages as you're building your company. It was, that was really scary. How did you? Why the healing rose? And what I mean is, like, how did you know to go into CBD? As you're in business school, like, what were you seeing? Were you paying attention to the cannabis space, or were you
Yeah.
always kind of tangentially involved?
So 2013, I went down to, or I guess out to Colorado for the High Times Cannabis Cup out there.
Yep.
And it was wild. I mean, cannabis had just
Yeah.
become legal, but they couldn't sell it. So they were just giving it out pretty much everywhere. And there were dabs everywhere, hundreds of tents. And I was just like, oh my God, this is going to be an industry. And it wasn't like that at home. There were some underground events happening that I loved going to as a cannabis patient. But just kind of seeing, oh my God, I can make this a career and I can make this a business.
Wow.
Just kind of let me focus all my business classes on cannabis. Like I would write every paper I could on cannabis. And I was a really good student. I graduated cum laude. So I was at the top of my class, really engaged in all my classes. And anytime I could talk about cannabis, I would. So it's just always trying to change the stigma as a cannabis patient. And I think yeah, I don't know. It really was just, I've wanted to be in this industry for 8 years. So I
You
love this
manifested.
plant. And yeah, and the cannabis itself, especially in Massachusetts, really expensive to get into. And that's why we took a little turn at the start of 2017 and just strictly focused on hemp. So we were like, Massachusetts isn't going legal anytime soon. I mean, what had passed, but it took over 2 years to actually get
Yeah.
recreational going, and you need millions of dollars at this point to get in. So while there's routes in that we're exploring, just straight up owning a license wasn't in it for me. I don't want to take on investors. I wanted to always retain all my equity in my business. That's like a really big goal of ours. So you start small, and hemp is just really accessible for everyone to be able to get into as a business. So I really like that.
So you saw coming up, you saw the opportunity as you went out west, I had the same exact experience. You know, I went out there in 2014 and I said, wow, everything looks really bad. You know, and
Yep.
how do none of you have websites? And I had a very similar experience though, but it's you know, sometimes it does take that kind of like aha moment. You know, I love hearing about that.
I can still like picture the giant crowds of people moving, and there was like no room, and I was just like a kid in a candy shop. And my friends behind me were like way too high, and they were like, "Oh, I'm really tired." I'm like, "We need to go around and talk to like every booth we can. This is crazy." So yeah, it just was like that aha moment. And then I went to Chalice also in 2016 before actually launching the Healing Rose, and there were so many topicals everywhere. That's out in California, and there were probably like 500 booths. It was 106 degrees in July. There were ambulances everywhere taking away people passing out from dehydration and overheating. And we were just going around just like, again, kids in a candy store, like booths from all over the country. It was highly gray area.
Totally.
And they don't do that event anymore. So I
No.
knew that it was special. I'm like, this won't happen as legalization keeps growing and getting more legit. So I took it in every moment. And actually at those type of events, you can go around and ask the booths. And if you can get any of the entrepreneurs to answer a question or two, I'd ask them like what their story was, like why they're passionate about this or how you make this. And a lot of people will talk to you about that kind of stuff. So I feel there's a lot of value, especially if you're just getting into the space of going to events and just making your face known and talking to people. It's really a good way to get in.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because I know how important those were for you. But obviously, like we're living in a different world right now, and you know, we're recording this in early January, but I think it'll be released in a month or two. Hopefully, it'll be a different world then. But the events, like I said, you know, when I first encountered you, like it was really a spectacle. Like it was an all-inclusive sort of experience that you were offering, and as your business grew, that experience grew, and with every trade show that we went to together, because we've been to a few together, um, you know, that grew and grew and grew. Your products got better and better and better. Your customer base grew and grew and grew. But now you don't have that. I know how important that was. That just like face to face, you know, meeting your customers, really growing on a grassroots level. What have you been doing this past year?
Yeah, so honestly, before the pandemic, it was a huge strategy of ours to get to every event possible. Sometimes we do like 10 a month. And so we did the farmers markets. We were doing SOA in Boston. That was 26 weeks last year, every Sunday. And we had signed up for that, plus a Saturday market for 26 weeks that was canceled. Well, I guess it wasn't canceled. They just did it, and no one showed up pretty much. So yeah, we really had to pivot. Also, our wholesale accounts, which used to account for about half of our business, just plummeted. No one was really placing orders, or they were closed. Some people were placing orders, but probably reduced 75%. With no events, we just really pivoted and focused right to consumers. Obviously, we have great partners in CannaPlanners, and you guys help us with our website, and we focused on SEO. We also hired a public relations person on retainer. So while that's an investment, he's been incredible to help us with just getting on blogs, meeting people, getting products out to people, also getting us coverage. We were just interviewed by the Boston Business Journal. And that's all because he pitches us and sees who picks us up. So, and this year we're also focusing really a lot on local. We'll talk about it in a little bit, I'm sure, but we can start to sell our products in dispensaries here in Massachusetts soon. So with that focus, having a public relations person, Josh Milne, who's amazing. He's out of Waltham. He actually helped me last summer with the Mass Hemp Coalition.
Shout out Josh.
Yes, and he helped us at pretty much no cost last summer. So we hired him this year, and he's been amazing. So really focusing on how do we reach new people without events and retail. It's been interesting, but all you can do is pivot, be creative, be willing to be flexible, and also be ready to spend some money because things cost money.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, I guess when comparing, when you're removing aspects of budgets, travel and
Hmm.
booths, they're not cheap. They're a couple grand in
No,
some instances, but
or more.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
more plus the whole outfit of the booth. Like it can be a very large investment. Um, it's not for me at least, among the clients of CannaPlanners, it's not a terribly, it's not a unique story, right? Like all of these businesses are facing sort of this trauma of, what's happening right now, and are forced to rethink things. And I think it's, for sure shown a lot of businesses the value of the internet, right? And how to best reach new people that you would have otherwise maybe met in person at a farmer's market or a trade show or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's
And
awesome to hear you say that.
of course, social media helps, but I've been shadow
Absolutely.
banned several times this year on Instagram, which is just so frustrating. So I don't
Yeah.
even post anything. It's so crazy that we get in trouble. I think I don't know. I'm not even
I
sure. I can't figure it
before
out.
this very podcast, my friend, I logged into Facebook, which I don't often do. Everything's tied to Facebook. I don't
Yes.
often go there. And I got a notification. I go there enough that I would, have seen this notification. It was actually from a post from 2017.
Mm.
And it says, we're removing this post because it, drugs or something. I don't know, but it was from NECAN. It was a picture of like the floor of NECAN or something like that. So social media is ridiculous, and for
Yeah.
sure, you and I have talked about this, and it's been an issue for us. And I think part of the responsibility of companies like yours, companies like mine, who are really like building the bridge as we cross it, which is something I say too much. But really, that's what we're doing. We're writing the book as we're reading it.
Yeah.
whatever metaphor you want to use, like we're
That's true.
figuring this stuff out as we do it. And you know, we're not allowed a lot of the same resources that other businesses outside of our little industry are, and it's frustrating.
Mhm.
But hopefully, the value is we're still finding new and unique ways to build value in the brand, so I want to talk a little bit, because you are I'm sure your PR agent has no lack of material to go on with you. You are like, beyond being an amazing entrepreneur, a successful businesswoman, you are heavily involved in the community. I want to talk to you beyond being the what is it? I don't want to make you tell me. I'll figure this out. It's the 2020 Business Advocate of the Year. Did I or cannabis?
Massachusetts, yeah, Cannabis Activist of the Year. I guess it's
Sorry, I
2019.
made you say
I got
that.
the award, and I didn't know this for like the whole year, so I guess it's technically 2019 award. But
Yeah, but there's no events, so it
I know
holds
I
up.
was so
Like it
confused.
rolls over. You will
It does.
continuously be the champion, and
I
I
found out
doubt
at the end
anybody.
of 2020, so it was
Yeah,
confusing.
thanks, Nikan.
Yeah. Shout out, love them. Big shout out.
Definitely,
Big
shout out, love them.
hug.
I want to talk to you a bit about the activism part of it. For me, I don't want to say it was a small part of my journey, because I feel like, just as a cannabis entrepreneur, it's a never-ending part of your journey.
Mm.
But it it wasn't an important foot in the door for me, because I while I was uh, casually involved in I'm a medical patient as well, but like I'm very outside of the whole thing, and especially being in Vermont, it was a
Mm.
very small community of entrepreneurial people working in the cannabis space. For sure, lots of black market stuff, but so anyway, like for me, the small role I took in activism was really just like a way to meet up with like-minded people. And I did, like I made a lot of really meaningful relationships through that. I was wondering if maybe like you had a similar experience, or you've managed to, you're still involved, way more than I ever was. um, but I was wondering if you could just talk about the activism part of it, and why it's been such an important part of you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So early 2016, I went to my first Women Grow Boston event. And that was, first of all, I almost didn't go. I was so nervous to go. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to an event with no one I know in the middle of Boston, downtown at night, in the middle of the winter. But I was like, I got to do this. I want to meet like-minded people. I want to get in the industry. I was like 2 months out of Northeastern. So I went to the event and I loved it. I met amazing women. There were like, I don't know, 12 people there. Went to the next one. And at the third one, they announced they were kind of opening up spots for volunteers. So I sent in my application and I ended up getting brought on. There was only 2 people brought on. So it was just Beth Waterfall, Takia, Anthony Price, and then myself. And I was the membership chair and also just kind of helped run all the events and come up with ideas. So I did all that, volunteer for, I think, like probably about close to a year before we closed and started Elevate Northeast. I guess it was a year and a half, actually. It was a while. And that was everything to starting the Healing Rose. I mean, when I launched the Healing Rose, I had this huge supportive network of close to like 100 women that have gone to in and out of events. And I was able to go to event each month, hand out samples, do raffle prizes at them. And that was really helpful for us first in those beginning days, obviously throughout. But I don't know if we would have been able to move as quickly if I didn't have that network for my activism. So that was amazing. People just knowing me, people trusting me. That led to a lot of speaking opportunities. And I hated public speaking in college. Like, you could not catch me with it. I remember like my first day of college, I was like, are we gonna have to do a lot of public speaking at this? And she was like, yes, absolutely. And I was like, no, this is not good. But I always kind of like facing my fears. And now that I sign up for a lot of public speaking and it gets
I've
easier.
seen you do a few keynotes.
Thank you.
You're great.
I still get my anxiety still gets to me sometimes, but that's
sure, you're human.
And I have really bad anxiety. So sometimes if that gets to me, I'm just like, I'm glad I did this. I'm always out of my comfort zone doing that. And that's always empowering. But yeah, that comes with also activism. Like, I've spoken on the Freedom Rally stage in front of thousands of people, thousands of stone people, mind you. So it's like the nicest
sure, of course,
to speak in front of. But it is still nerve-wracking. And then, so throughout that, Elevate, I've been involved with, I'm still on the board of directors. And then 2019 came around, June last year, and we had just moved into our new facility in Newburyport, and the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture put out a notice pretty much saying CBD is not allowed in food, not allowed in pet products. You can't sell CBD flower to end consumers, and just threw like a whole wrench in the industry here in Massachusetts.
I remember well.
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy. And within 48 hours, we organized a huge, what was the start of the Massachusetts Hemp Coalition first meeting. And I think we had like 20 something people here in Newburyport. We had dozens of people calling in on the phone, trying to come up with a plan. Within 2 weeks, we organized a state house rally. We had meetings with legislative reps. We got a lot of amazing people on board. I think at the state house rally, we had 22 or 24 people actually speak on the steps. We had the press there, and we were just making a lot of noise, letting people know it's not okay. And that led to meetings with MDAR and again with legislators. And while things move slowly here in Massachusetts and they're not where we want them to be, things have been progressing. We just got a hemp amendment passed to the annual budget, which took a lot of work from activists. Hillary King really kind of led the charge here in Massachusetts, but it was really a core group of us, and just reaching out to legislators. And you learn, if you make a lot of noise, your legislators listen. They represent us, and if you reach out to them, their job is to reach back out to you. So kind of learning that you can have your voice heard. I know a lot of people feel powerless sometimes, but on the local political level, you can actually make a difference, especially if you organize and power in numbers, for sure. So that's
where it all starts
really
anyway,
helpful.
right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. So you've been like obviously you've been heavily involved. Have you tried to? Well, let's talk about. So with the new hemp amendment, is that what allows hemp CBD products into the dispensaries?
Yes, exactly. And we're not.
I mean, that's so huge. That's so.
Yeah,
huge.
I'm not sure of the timeline yet.
Sure.
Reaching out to people and making sure that they know I would like to be involved with any kind of planning of that and creating the regulations, but it's going to be happening in 2021, hopefully Q1. I really hope so. That'd be obviously huge for the Healing Rose, but I'm really excited for hemp farmers. Hemp farmers keep getting thrown wrenches and like, I guess, pickaxes and all these awful things. You're not getting any help. And so if they can sell their flower directly to consumers in dispensaries, they can go from like $25, $50, $100 a pound to, I don't know the math on that, what they're going to get, but
Yeah,
it's multiples more than that. So it's going to be huge.
I love hearing it because it just brings the without using too many buzzwords, the full spectrum of just like the healing cannabinoids. It brings them closer together, obviously in Massachusetts, but allowing the consumers to kind of figure out what's going to work for them, and having all of these things kind of hopefully under one roof.
Yeah, and as you know, like it's not just CBD. It's CBG is being widely available now. There's varieties of CBC strains that are being worked on. So it's going to open up the door to many different cannabinoids and growing a lot more affordably under the sun with less like regulations, hopefully.
Yeah.
Or at least even if the same, but making it more accessible to small businesses and farmers.
Let's talk about products, because you have a lot, and I know it's they've grown over the years. Can you talk a little bit about like where do these ideas come from? Sort of how do you sort of plan out a product line? How much test? I know a lot of testing and R&D goes into these things, obviously, but like how are you ideating? How often are you kind of going to the lab? Trying to expand and figure out what works.
That's a very relevant question to this past week, because we have been doing so much planning and R&D right now. I can't even tell you how excited I am.
Tell me, yes, please. This is what you're supposed to do.
We have. I'm very excited. So we have a list of probably like 15 different product lines I'd love to launch. I know that's like so ambitious.
Lines.
I am not joking. We already have 6 product lines right now. So we do have salves, massage oils, roll-on oils, lip balms, bath soaks, extracts. Did I forget one there? Yeah, that was it. So our CBD oils, we consider our extracts. But yeah, no, we are going to be, by the time this podcast airs, we'll have our new massage oils on the market. So we're going from 2 options to 4. We're doubling the strengths, keeping the pricing the same. That's kind of been a theme of our launches as we relaunch product lines to try to compete, also make more effective products and more accessible products for people, which I think is going to be the trend in this space. We're going to be doing a face line. So hopefully that's either about to launch by the time this comes out, but we've been working on that for a year. The bath soaks we launched. Planning. So the bigger you get, the more you plan. You're just like, I can't rush this. In the early days, it was a lot different, but we also had failed products that didn't do well in the market that we had to pull. So try to avoid that. With the bath soaks bags, we ordered like $8,000 worth of bags. So when you're making that type of investment, you want it to be perfect.
Totally.
I also do all the marketing designs. So I do all the label designs, just did all new marketing materials. I did all the design on that. And there's like as you know, you do design work, and there's like a special type of like satisfaction that comes from creating something that is going to be in people's homes and loved by them. So I love the whole process. Anytime we can get out of the day-to-day of running the website and everything and get into the creative part, that's like when my soul feels alive, and Zach and I get really excited and we're like, oh my God, can't wait to launch this. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's a exponential growth in products, right? So like,
yeah, I know we're going to be over time.
Well, totally. I mean, there's a lot that will go into production, but also, like the pre-planning, right? You have a lot of retail partners currently, right? So, you have to let them know that this is coming and, get them all amped up about it. Plus you want to be able to like promote it into your general customer base and probably break into new markets. How do you, between doing all that and production and, you're creating all the labels and doing all of this stuff, how do you figure out how to prioritize all that?
That is really difficult. I'd say probably one of the biggest struggles of all entrepreneurs is staying organized and staying on top and prioritizing. Um, this fall, I was back in doing production, hands-on, making finishing the products off and stuff, which I don't.
Oh, you'll find me making a website here and there. Every so
Yeah.
often, I'm called back in to
We unfortunately had to
create a page.
Yeah, we had to let 2 employees go in one day, which we've only fired 3 employees in 4 years, and 2 were in one day. So yeah, it led us to a little short-staffed, but that's okay. I'm all about pivoting. I'm all about it. I do like getting back in the lab. It's a nice distraction if I can go work on products for 8 hours and put some podcast on or music and just zone out. I do it more if Zach didn't pull me out. He's like, no, we have people for that, Laura. I'm like, but I could go in there and I could just do some labeling. But so thankfully that when I don't have to worry about more of the day-to-day stuff and I can focus on the big picture stuff, that's definitely a goal for 2021. We've been hiring and building out a really great team that's going to kind of allow me to look at the high level stuff instead more. But we are still doing shipping and stuff because we did have to let go our shipping team member, but that's okay. That's okay. That's a small business. You put on all the different hats. That's how it is.
You got to, and sometimes you have the luxury of being able to take them off, and sometimes you have the burden of having to put it back on and then some. So yeah, I totally get that. I'm currently dealing with this the emotion of, because we're at similar trajectories just in terms of the timelines of our companies. We've been around, maybe you've been around a year or two, a little longer than us, but we're along the same parallel. And I've had the luxury of being able to take off a lot of hats recently, and I'm now I have this emotion of being a little depressed because now I'm not sure what to do. I can only focus on big picture stuff as opposed to
and you don't get that instant satisfaction. Yeah, and you don't get that instant satisfaction like me putting on a label. Or someone else can put on that label, Laura. But I'm like, but it feels really good to do it.
Yeah,
but
I can do it. I can do it. They're like, shut up, old man.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, can you please get out of the way?
It's honestly, I mean, it's been happening for sure. Will, I've got this. But I think that's just a modicum of scale. That's just something that I feel, it's bittersweet. On some levels it sucks, but I also understand that it's an effect of growing and being able to grow this team. And you'd probably agree that ultimately, the growth of the company, the growth of the Healing Rose is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So you've mentioned Zach a couple times. Can we get a little schmoopy?
Let's get schmoopy.
Okay. So in addition to watching you be able to, like I said before, you got it, right? You knew what you were doing coming into this. This was you had a good game plan and you executed confidently and successfully, right? And you still are. In addition to that, I watching you do that, I also watched this guy who was sort of always, he's always around you, but he's an amazing salesman. Zach, who is now your fiance. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one of the things I noticed, and this is something in the beginning of my, entrepreneurial venture, it didn't cross my mind, ever working with my wife, my life partner, my significant other. But I watched you're one of 2 or 3 companies who have been able to make that dynamic work, and not only work, thrive. And when I see you guys working together at the booth, it's hugely inspirational. It made me jealous. I wanted that. I was like, okay, I have the company's coming together, but I don't feel whole. I want, I wish my wife was here doing this thing with me, and now she is, and it was so thank you for that. I'm interested in the dynamic of that, actually. How do you guys make that work? For my wife and I, we have opposite schedules, and luckily I'm on the phone almost all of the day. So we're able to, compartmentalize ourselves kind of within our own day to day. But we're still kind of in it together to build this thing and make it a success. How do you guys make it work?
Yeah, I think Zach and I are really lucky in that I've been friends with him since I was 14 years old. So we've always just kind of had that really like good friendship. We always like had crushes on each other, but like dating never worked out until about 6.5 years ago when we started to
You're
date
just
after
lending
being
even
roommates.
more adorable context. Keep going.
Yeah, we were roommates for almost a year, and I just like realized, I was like, one day I had this epiphany. I was like, we'd be like perfect old people together. And then I like cried,
Wow.
and I was like, I think I love Zach, and I was my best friend. And she's like, oh my God, this is happening. This is like a really intense moment. I was like, oh, this is, yeah. I was camping, and I like went back home, and it all just happened that night. I was like, we pretty much just went from friends to being in a relationship. And I was like, I love you. And he's like, and we had one moment when we were roommates. My friend was like,
Finally.
yeah, we had, exactly. He'd been crushing on me, I guess, for a long time. And I kind of just been like, you're always like my best friend. And
Yep.
then, yeah, I had a roommate situation with him where a friend was like, you guys are going to get married one day. And I was like, Zach, like, Ben thinks we're going to get married one day. How funny is that? And he was like, and I was like, why is it so awkward? And I was like, why is he laughing?
That poor guy. He's like, little did you know.
Yeah, he's like, I did not expect her to say this to me, like all this stuff. So it was just like, I was like, does Zach like me? And then months later, we ended up realizing that we were just such good partners. I mean, we were like great roommates. We never fought. It was so easy to be with him. There's nothing that feels forced. I could spend forever with him. I don't get sick of Zach. And we have like a really nice yin and yang balance. I mean, obviously, every couple has their little disagreements and things like that. And like, I would never say we're perfect, but we have this like really amazing balance of like our skills and personality. We're different in a lot of ways, and it really complements. He's introverted, I'm extroverted, but he's also like he can do phone calls really well, and he's fine with talking to strangers, and I don't love that. Or he does actually all of the formulations, so that was all Zach coming up with all the formulas. He's a cook's mind. He went to culinary school, and I'm more of the marketing person. But he's also really, really business savvy. So we're always,
Sure.
it's so helpful living with the person that you have a business with, because it just,
I agree.
the business meeting never ends. You know, we constantly have ideas. Oh, did you remember this? Do you forget that? Like, you know, oh yeah, we have to do that. It's just, it makes things really easy. And our schedules were pretty much always together. The pandemic has, you know, forced us together a lot, and I don't hate it. It's brought us closer together and made us fall more in love, honestly. And I mean, I normally
That's
outside
a
of the
beautiful thing.
yeah, and
That's a
does.
beautiful
I
thing.
think this pandemic has tested a lot of people, but I like am more grateful than ever for Zach. And once you know, I do coach basketball, and I do try to do things outside of business and my life that give me time away, so that you can have that healthy balance. But yeah, I do have basketball starting next week or a week and a half, so
That's awesome.
I'll be coaching over at my high school again, third season of JV there, so
And
that'll be a nice break.
you guys crushed it last season.
Oh, well, I was
Is
coaching
that
2 basketball teams for 2 years, which was insane. God bless Zach. He really helped me out there, cooking the meals and keeping stuff clean, because I was like, how am I coaching 2 teams? But
that's
yeah,
a lot.
I started coaching a team in 5th grade. They're in high school now, but when they were in 5th grade, and I committed to coaching them all until they were, after high school. So when they were in 7th grade, I got asked by my old high school, hey, do you want to coach JV basketball? And I couldn't say no. I loved my old high school. It was a boarding school, so it was like my home. So I was like, yes, I want to come back and coach, and it's paid. So I just couldn't say no to the other team. So I coached them for 2 seasons, and thank God that's over. And now I can just coach basketball over at my high school, which is 10 minutes down the road.
Just one gig, or
Yeah, and they feed me dinner in the
gig.
dining hall. I can go get meals anytime.
That's awesome.
Like, the little things,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that is a beautiful thing, and like I said, it was inspirational watching you guys evolve as a couple and as a business. And like I said, it was you and a couple other clients of mine who were just like really trying to create a cohesive and life of fulfillment. Just being able to find joy in not only the personal relationship, but also like the empires we're trying to build.
Yeah. And I will say, if you're starting a business, like that is your life. If you're going to be starting a business without getting capital and investors, I mean, even if you do that, it's a lot, but we scrapped it, and we were sleeping in air mattresses in our office many, many times. Like, if you don't have a partner that's going to match your hustle and be okay with, pretty much sacrificing a lot from your life, it's just not going to work. But when you find that match, it is way more powerful. I mean, I couldn't do this without Zach. I mean, he literally works just as hard as me. It's sometimes harder on events. He's the trooper that'll wake up at like 6 a.m, go set ups, and then I can sleep in like that. He's just the best partner I could ever ask for. So like the Healing Rose would not be without Zach. I mean, he creates all the formulas. Well, I get a lot of the credit as like the face, and he doesn't mind that. He hates being the face. Like if someone asks him for an interview, he's like, "Come over, do that interview." I don't want to do the interview. So I'm fine with doing that too. That's totally fine with me. And it's just
it's that
we have that really
balance.
nice yin and yang in that balance.
Skill sets.
Yeah, you can't
So
have people that
important
compete for spotlight either. You kind of need that one person that's willing to do that too. I mean, you can have balance in that sense, but it is kind of helpful to have someone as the face and someone who's willing to kind of do the back stuff too. Great.
Well, like I was saying, I think we as entrepreneurs, it's important that you recognize that everything you do is for the betterment of the company. I even like I'm sure you do this too. I like personify the company. It's like a kid. It's like a baby I had that like used to live in the nursery, and now it's kind of living in the apartment above the garage, sort of thing.
Yep. You gotta go check in on the kids.
I gotta check in on the kids always and make sure that like they're growing and they're healthy, and being able to that balance. It's so important. It's so important, especially if like you can both kind of remove the ego of the whole thing as best you can. Of course.
Yeah.
So
we all have ego, but yeah.
Oh yeah, we all have it, but like, as long as we have that realization that like this kid living in the apartment above the garage is more important than the singular I, or even like the collective we. Like we're doing
so
this
much
for
bigger.
that.
Yeah, especially you have so many clients now, and we have so many customers. It becomes so much bigger than you. So I totally understand that.
Totally. I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
I love that. I think that's kind of a beautiful spot to put a pin in it. I really appreciate your time. Can you tell the 5 people listening and the 12 people watching? I'm just kidding. Can you tell the people listening and watching where they can find you? We will, of course, link you in the description below and the description of the podcast. But tell people where to find you.
Yeah, of course. So you can check out our website, which is developed and maintained by CannaPlanners. www.thehealingroseco, so that's co.com. And then on Instagram, _, but you might have to type in fully if we are shadow banned, because they make it difficult to find us.
We'll make it easy.
Even with 7,300 followers or whatever, it's still whatever. And Facebook, you can type in The Healing Rose Boston. On TikTok, we're just straight The Healing Rose.
Dance videos in the warehouse.
Yeah, and we got a lot of. We're trying to do some educational content. We're actually filming some TikToks today, so trying to get out there, reach the younger crowd. Let them know about CBD. Not like under 21. I just mean the younger crowd.
Yeah, I get it. Laura Beohner, founder, CEO of The Healing Rose, a wonderful CBD product brand based in Massachusetts. You're the best. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.